I wonder how many of you remember that story of the baby Moses. In Sunday school, where I went, we used to get little pictures of the story each day, and I remember that one so well. This is a story familiar to all of us. The story of the baby Moses, who was placed in a papyrus basket and left floating among the reeds at the edge of the Nile River. The story of Moses, like the story of Joseph that we heard last Sunday, are literary creations written not to tell the historic events, but rather to convey the power of the Spirit of God in the lives of the Hebrew people. The simple fact is that Moses would have had, would have had to have lived between 400 and 500 years in order to match in some way the history of the Israel and Egypt that is named in the biblical story. The power of this story of oppression, mass exodus, and eventual freedom is not in the historical accuracy, but is rather in the truths to be found in the telling. Primarily the value of courage, faith, hope, resilience, and compassion. This story begins following the death of Joseph, who had risen to the right hand of Pharaoh of Egypt. A new Pharaoh has no knowledge of the memory of the history and sees the Hebrew people, Joseph's people, as a threat. Efforts are made to keep the Hebrew people enslaved. And at the heart of the story is the compassion and courage of a number of women that bring about the eventual freedom of an entire nation. Hear now the beginning of the story of the great prophet Moses, read from Exodus 1:8, 2-10. Now a new Pharaoh arose over Egypt, who did not know Joseph. He said to his people, "Look, the Israelite people are more numerous and more powerful than we are. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, or they will increase, and in the event of war, join our enemies and fight against us, and escape from the land." Therefore, they set taskmasters over them to oppress them and force them to labor. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread, so that the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites. The Egyptians became ruthless in imposing tasks on the Israelites and made their lives bitter with hard service in mortar and brick and every kind of field labor. They were ruthless in all the tasks they imposed on them. The Pharaoh said to the Hebrew midwives, "When you act as midwives to the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stool, if it is a boy, kill him. But if it is a girl, she shall live." But the midwives held to God, and they did not do as Pharaoh commanded them, but they let the boys live. So the Pharaoh summoned the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this and allowed the boys to live?" The midwives said to Pharaoh, "Because Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women, for they are vigorous and give birth before the midwife comes to it." For God was in the heart of the midwives, and the people multiplied and became very strong. Then Pharaoh commanded all the people, "Every boy that is born to the Hebrews you shall throw into the Nile, but you shall let every girl live." Now, a man from the house of Levi went and married a Levite woman. The woman conceived and bore a son. And when they saw that he was a fine baby, she hid him 3 months. When she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and plastered it with bitumen and pitch, and put the child in and placed it among the reeds on the bank of the river. Her sister Miriam stood at a distance to see what happened to her. The daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, while her attendants walked beside the river. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her maid to bring it. When she opened it, she saw the child who was crying, and she felt compassion for him. "This must be one of the Hebrews' children," she said. Then Miriam said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get you a nurse from the Hebrew women to nurse this child for you?" Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Yes." So Miriam went and called her mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child and nurse it for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed it. When the child grew up, she took him to the Pharaoh's daughter, and she took him as her son. Then she took him as her son. She named him Moses, because she said, "I drew him out of the water." Hear what the Spirit is saying to the church.
Thanks be to God.
Thanks, Joyce.